Ancient Egypt was one of the oldest and longest-lasting world civilizations. It was located along the Nile River in the northeast part of Africa and lasted for over 3,000 years. Egypt is always full of various unsolved mysteries of the world and the universe. With huge pyramids, various strange stone statues, and ancient Egyptian characters, Egypt seems full of mysterious collections. Even some suspect this country was built by aliens. The ancient Egyptians' land was given by the Nile River, whose waters were essential to the rise of one of the world's earliest great civilizations. Ancient Egypt was divided into two regions, Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt, each with their king. The Nile River played an important role in shaping the lives and society of ancient Egypt. The Nile provided the ancient Egyptians with food, transportation, building materials, and more. The most important thing the Nile provided to the ancient Egyptians was fertile land. Most of Egypt is desert, but along the Nile River, the soil is rich and suitable for growing crops. In 3150 BC, the Upper Egypt king named Menes sent an army down the Nile and defeated the king of Lower Egypt in a battle. In this way, Menes united Upper and Lower Egypt and was the founder and pharaoh of the first dynasty. The Nile supported and allowed agriculture production to grow in the grueling climate. Soon, Egyptians was getting rich. Successive dynasties witnessed flourishing trade, prosperity, and the development of great cultural traditions. Writing, including hieroglyphics, is used as an instrument of the state. At that time, Egyptians were superstitious. They believed that God controlled the universe. Therefore, Egyptians tried to please the gods because if the gods were happy, then the Nile would flood, produce an abundance of crops, and prevent famine. The supreme ruler of Egypt is called the pharaoh, which is equivalent to the kings of other countries. The pharaoh wants the Egyptians to adore them, even after their death. The ancient Egyptians believed in the afterlife, a place where they went when they died. Tombs of early Egyptian kings were bench-shaped mounds called mastabas. Around 2780 BC, King Djoser wanted to have a unique tomb to bury himself after death. Thus, the first real step pyramid was built in Egypt. Subsequently, the larger pyramids were built by King Djoser's successors. Until 2600 BC, the largest pyramid, the Great Pyramid of Giza, was built for Pharaoh Khufu. It is the oldest of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, and the only one to remain largely intact. It is estimated that the Great Pyramid of Giza was built during a period of around 27 years. Initially standing at 146.5 meters, the Great Pyramid was the tallest man-made structure in the world for more than 3,800 years. Maybe the extravagance of pharaohs makes the Nile angry. Subsequently, the country was in severe drought that lasted for 50 years, causing famine and chaos. Pharaohs gradually stopped building pyramids. Around 1000 BC, Egyptian power declined. Between this time and 331 BC, Egypt was ruled in turn by the Libyans, Nubians, Assyrians, and Persians. In 332 BC, Alexander the Great swept down from Greece, conquering much of the Middle East all the way to India. Along the way, he conquered Egypt. Alexander was declared pharaoh of Egypt. He established the capital city of Alexandria along the northern coast of Egypt. When Alexander the Great died, his kingdom was divided among his generals. One of his generals, Ptolemaic Dynasty, became the pharaoh of Egypt. The Ptolemaic Dynasty was the last dynasty of ancient Egypt. Although Ptolemaic later rulers were Greek, they took on the religion and many traditions of ancient Egypt. At the same time, they introduced many aspects of Greek culture into the Egyptian way of life. For many years, Egypt prospered under the rule of the Ptolemaic Dynasty. Many temples were built in the style of the New Kingdom. When Ptolemy III died in 221 BC, the Ptolemaic Dynasty began to weaken. The government became corrupt, and many rebellions occurred throughout the country. At the same time, the Roman Empire was becoming stronger and taking over much of the Mediterranean. Queen Cleopatra was the last active ruler of the Ptolemaic Kingdom of Egypt. In order to help her cause, she sought Julius Caesar, the general of ancient Rome's support, reportedly smuggling herself into the royal palace to plead her case with him. Queen Cleopatra commits suicide after the Roman army defeats her forces. Ptolemaic dynasty ruled for nearly 300 years until 30 BC. In 30 BC, Egypt became an official Roman province. Daily life in Egypt changed little under Roman rule. Egypt became one of the most important provinces of Rome as a source of grain and as a trade center. For several hundred years, Egypt was a source of great wealth for Rome. The Romans ruled Egypt for over 600 years until around 640 AD. In AD 640, Muslims came from the Arabian Peninsula and conquered Egypt. They founded the city of Cairo in 969 and made it their capital. Egypt was ruled by the Mamelukes from 1250 until 1517. That year it came under the domination of the Ottoman Turks. In 1798 the French general Napoleon Bonaparte invaded Egypt. His expedition aroused European interest in Egypt. And it led to the discovery of the Rosetta Stone, which provided a long-sought key to ancient Egyptian hieroglyphic writing. Napoleon's troops were forced to withdraw from Egypt in 1801 by British and Turkish forces. In 1805, Mehmed Ali was made viceroy, or royal governor, of Egypt by the Ottoman Sultan. Seizing power for himself, Mehmed Ali ruled until 1848. He undertook a remarkable program of reforms, modernization, and military conquest. Egypt's prosperity declined under Mehmed Ali's hereditary successors. They borrowed large sums of money from the British and French. In 1875 the British government bought Egypt's shares in the Suez Canal. The canal had been built by the French and opened in 1869. To collect their debts, the British and French set up a commission to oversee Egyptian finances. A nationalist revolt in 1881–82 was put down by British troops, who occupied the country. In 1914 Egypt was officially declared a British protectorate. Britain granted Egypt independence in 1922. Shortly afterwards, Sultan Fuad I declared himself King of Egypt. But during World War II, 1939–45, Egypt and the Suez Canal served as vital links in Britain's empire and as the gateway to India. After World War II, discontent and resistance to the British colonizers grew. The Egyptians resented Britain's continued control of the Suez Canal. The government of King Farouk, who had come to the throne in 1936, was corrupt and inefficient. The military blamed the government for losing a 1948–49 war with the new nation of Israel. In 1952 a group of army officers began a revolt that overthrew the king, and in 1953, they set up a republic. A leader of the revolution, Colonel Gamal Abdel Nasser, became Egypt's president in 1956. In 1956, Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. When Israel was denied use of the canal, its forces attacked. They occupied most of Egypt's Sinai Peninsula and the Gaza Strip. At the same time, British and French troops landed in the canal area. After the United Nations intervened, the three nations withdrew. The support of the United States for the UN intervention earned appreciation for the United States in Egypt. Arab unity was one of Nasser's main goals, and in 1958 he merged Egypt with Syria in a federation called the United Arab Republic. But Syria withdrew in 1961 because of political differences. The removal of UN forces in the Sinai at Egypt's request and Egypt's closing of the Gulf of Aqaba to Israeli ships led to war with Israel in 1967. Israel again invaded the Sinai, reaching the Suez Canal itself, and retook the Gaza Strip. In 1970, Nasser died and was succeeded as president by Anwar el-Sadat. In 1971, Egypt changed its name to the Arab Republic of Egypt. Determined to regain the lost Sinai, Sadat, in 1973, launched an attack on Israeli positions on the east bank of the canal. Following a ceasefire, United Nations forces were again stationed in the area. Israel withdrew from the canal, which was reopened to shipping in 1975. Israel was allowed to use the canal for non-military cargoes. In 1977, Sadat visited Israel to discuss the question of peace in the region. His historic journey led to a peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. Israel agreed to a gradual withdrawal of its forces from the Sinai Peninsula. A formal peace treaty was signed in 1979. In 1981, Sadat was assassinated by members of a group that opposed his peace policies. His successor as president, Hosni Mubarak, supported the peace treaty. The last Israeli forces withdrew from the Sinai in 1982, and the area was returned to Egypt. Hosni Mubarak's focus on security enabled him to crush an Islamist insurgency and sustain official support for the 1979 peace treaty with Israel, making him a staunch ally of the West. However, it also produced political stagnation. At the same time, the Muslim Brotherhood, an Islamist political group founded in Egypt in 1928, became stronger during the Mubarak era, even though it remained an illegal organization. In the later years of his presidency, Mubarak was given credit for economic reforms that successfully raised overall growth and investment. However, they failed to alleviate poverty. Some 40% of the Egyptian population continued to live on $2 a day or less. Ultimately, a sense of economic injustice helped create the conditions for the 18-day uprising that unseated Mubarak. There was also anger over the brutality of security services and at undemocratic practices, including the president's assumed plan to hand power to his son. Although there have been some heroes in Egypt, trying to revive the country. However, none of them was able to lead the Egyptians to regain the glory during their ancestors' time. It has been hovering at the level of third-world countries. Where is this country's future? How can they create a piece of paradise? There are too many problems to be tangled. Egyptians struggle with the future, while foreigners have always been obsessed with Egypt's past. Ancient Egypt, a civilization thousands of years ago, left too many questions for future generations. Why are there so many tomb robbers? Archaeologists, after excavating the pharaoh's tomb, died inexplicably after they came back. What killing mechanism was hidden in the tomb? Even with today's technology, it is a big deal to build such magnificent pyramids. How did the ancient Egyptians fiddle with it? Could it be the help of aliens?